All right, we're going live. And right now, all the teams that are going to participate in this year's postseason have clinched with a day to go.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to October. This is Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your up late on a Saturday host. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan, but by all means, do what the lower third tells you to do and call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade, and tomorrow marks the end of my fifth regular season here as a podcaster on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel because I'm starting to get the sense that's how we're all going to be watching and following podcasts very, very soon. And follow us every single day. And you too can live the dream of being an everyday Sully follower. And that's right. Hashtag everyday Sully. For those of you who listen to me every single day, I want to know who you are. I want to know who you is, and you are what you is. The great Frank Zappa taught us that. It is the final day of the season tomorrow, and I mean, or today, I guess, depending on when you're actually watching this. I see a couple of people are already in the live stream. How are you? Let me know who you are. And there's a little bit of the excitement of tomorrow has been tempered. I can't lie to you. There's it's the scenarios of absolute anarchy were sitting out there, and it's some of the air is out of the balloon. Because if the Mariners had won, there would be absolute chaos in the American League West because we would not only not know who the champion was, we would know which team was out because the Mariners would still have a chance to be in it. If the Marlins lost and the Cubs wound up winning, but there would have been a chance for some form of anarchy happening on the final day. And they do a wonderful thing on the last day of the season, which they start all the games at the same time. And so you can't do the whole, well, are they going to play really hard? Are they not going to play hard? Are they going to hold back a little bit? Are they not going to hold back? No, everyone has to play at a hard level because you can't look at the scoreboard and say, oh, that game's already over. They've clinched. All right, play our scrubs. Everyone has to play at full strength. And I love this tradition of all the games starting at the same time at the end of the season. But unfortunately, what we're going to be seeing is a battle for seeding, and there is an element of intrigue of which Texas team is going to win the American League West. The Astros, if they wind up leapfrogging the Rangers on the final day, then that's a big thing for the Astros to be able to rest up a little bit and get the home field. And that would be kind of brutal for the Rangers, who were sitting in first place for a big chunk of the season and whose bullpen is, let's face it, still a mess. And if you're in a best of three series, even if you have the home field advantage, you'd be, well, actually, no, they would have the home field advantage. They would go to Minnesota. I'm going to talk about Minnesota a little bit later in the show, but you would be looking at a team that, whose rotation isn't as strong as it could be, although it's not bad, especially if Eovaldi pitches well. And you're looking at a team whose bullpen has been an abject disaster. Yeah, if you're the Rangers, you better win tomorrow. But that's just not quite as much fun as the season's on the line. Or if this happens or that happens, the Marlins have to fly back to New York to play one inning. Now, we did get to see a bizarre thing in Arizona tonight, and I do kind of want to savor that. The Diamondbacks and the Astros played basically the series of the weekend. The game that was won, the Astros held on to win the first game. There were two teams that were locking antlers with their playoff survival on the line. And the first game was an excellent game. And then today's game, and the game that was played on Saturday afternoon, the final score was, I believe, it was 1-0. Yeah, it was 1-0. Verlander got the win. Verlander is on a mission. Verlander wants to show that he's still Justin Verlander. Defending Cy Young Award winner, returning to the Astros and delivering another title. Kelly pitched great for the Diamondbacks. And the fact that Zach Gallen and Kelly are pitching well bodes well for the Diamondbacks. It was a 1-0 game. The Diamondbacks squandered so many opportunities. They were held to one run in the last two games. But because the Reds had the doors blown off their car by St. Louis, both teams got to celebrate. Both teams went to their locker room, bust out the champagne. Do you know what I thought would have been cool? Because both teams are celebrating. One's in the American League, one's in the National League. Have a joint celebration. Jump in the pool together. High five each other. Say, see you in the World Series. Why not? It's not like they're going to play each other anytime soon. And if they do, it's be in the World Series. And that'd be fun for both of them. So, congratulations to the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to have our good friend Millard Thomas is going to be on the show. Not Millard Fillmore. I called him Millard Fillmore once. We are not having the ghost of former President Millard Fillmore on the podcast. No, I wanted to spell that rumor right away. Millard Thomas is going to be on. Talk about his beloved Diamondbacks. We're going to do that. That's going to drop either late Sunday or early Monday. We're going to know for sure. We're going to know in tomorrow's show. We'll know all the seedings, who's going to be playing what, where, how, what. So we'll be making our predictions there. But we got to see a double celebration in Arizona. That was kind of cool. The celebration we saw in Pittsburgh was really great. It would have been more interesting for tomorrow if the Marlins had lost. And you would have seen the Marlins fighting for their life and the Cubs fighting for their life. But do you know what? The Marlins showed a lot of guts. They won the games they needed to win, and off they go. They are going to the postseason for just the fourth time in their history. The last time they were in was the COVID year, which is, of course, always weird. The COVID year was strange. But the previous two times they made the postseason, they won the World Series. They still have yet to win a division title, but they have as many World Series titles as the Mets. They have as many World Series titles as the Cleveland Indians, because the Cleveland Guardians haven't played in a World Series yet, so I can't call them that. They have more World Series than the Angels. Until recently, they had as many World Series championships as the freaking Cubs. That's weird. That's very weird. I think they're going to win the World Series this year? No, because they're in the same league as the Dodgers and the Braves, and I got to give them a massive head start. But the Marlins can hit. The two best acquisitions at the deadline were Berger and Bell, just for what they meant to that lineup and how they sparked it. It would be a lot scarier for a team in a short series if they had Sandy Alcantara, because he was starting to pitch very well in the second half, and then out he goes. But in a short series, and again, I'm not sure who's playing who or playing what yet, so I can't look at the matchups, but the Marlins would be pretty terrifying in a short series. I don't know if they'll be playing Philadelphia or Milwaukee at this point. I would lean to Milwaukee and their pitching staff, but Philadelphia has really good pitching, as does Arizona and as does Miami. All four of the teams can pitch, which is pretty cool in a best-of-3 series. So, and I have to give the Brewers a little bit of credit, too. I praise the hell out of Colin Ray and the Brewers for showing up, for playing hard, for having the walk-off win on Friday. Because, as I said before, they have no reason to play hard. They've already clinched. So what the hell do they care? But They did their job, and you saw they did it again today because the Cubs ran up, a 6 spot in the first inning, and the Brewers came storming back and they tied the game. Now, as it turned out, it didn't matter. And so, yeah, when the Marlins wound up winning, the Cubs wound up winning too, and it's not going to matter. But you know what? Texas, who wound up beating the Mariners, and with that, pushed aside all of the, the tension of some of the absolute folderinos that they were doing earlier this month. That's in the rearview mirror now. It all gets wiped out, and you have one of the best managers of the 21st century at the helm. Their bullpen's still a bit of a mess, but I think that if they win the division, they get to rest up a little bit, and they'll have Gray, they'll have Eovaldi, they'll have, they'll have a couple of, why can't I ever remember Jordan Montgomery's name? Corbin of the Nationals a few years ago was the pitcher whose name I could never remember. And for some reason, Montgomery is the pitcher. I can't remember his name. I always freeze up when that happens. I think I need to take a cognitive memory test. Mom set me up for one of those. But, if you give that rotation a little bit of rest and have them play in the division series against whatever combination of Minnesota, Houston, or Toronto you're going to get, well, there you go. By the way, there's another one, the Blue Jays. Blue Jays lost today, but they were helped out by the Mariners. The Mariners losing to the Rangers just spoiled everything. It spoiled everything. It spoiled the tension of who's going to be left out. It allowed the Blue Jays to back into it. And it's going to make this offseason super agonizing in Seattle because it was in their hands, and super agonizing for the Chicago Cubs as well. Now, how much should that agony be placed on the managers? We're going to get to that in segment 2 of our show. So just hang tight for a second as we're doing a live one, and I can't afford to futz around much. That's right. When you do it live, sometimes you got to stub your toe. And speaking of stubs, ticket stubs. Guess what? I don't really have a dog in the fight. My favorite national team is the Giants. My favorite team is the Red Sox. My second favorite team are the Mariners. I dislike the Yankees. None of them are in there. So I'm just going to be rooting for good baseball, but I live in Los Angeles County. So I guess part of me wants to see the Dodgers go far because I want to be able to go to a playoff game at the Division Series, the League Championship Series, maybe even the World Series. And I guess I'll be rooting for that, not necessarily for them to win, but so I can get tickets. But how am I going to get those tickets? I'll tell you how, through Gametime. Because you shouldn't have to be worrying about where you're buying tickets, what you're buying, what deals you're going to get. You should just be worrying about the game. That's Gametime. It's fast and it's easy. It's the best way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, theater events near you. They got killer last-minute deals, all in prices with views from your seats and the best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, and there's a lot of guesswork. Hey, I'm going to do this the last minute. Hey, what are the best deals I'm going to get? Hey, did these seats stink? All of them. All of those questions are paved over by Gametime. It's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind when you purchase. You can see the view from the seat. Now, most seats at Dodger Stadium are pretty great, but I don't know, there may be a clunker in there, or there may be go like, whoa, that one's pretty great. So you know exactly what you're going to get. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a deal without those hidden fees. You can buy tickets in seconds with boop, boop, 2 taps right to your phone. And it goes right to your phone, so you don't have to go fishing around for the email anymore. And you got the Gametime guarantee, which means you always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices. Do what they do? They guarantee it. Hey, let's get rid of the Game Time banner there. I forgot to mention we had our trivia question because we talked about Bob Melvin the other day and the fact that he may be the next manager of the Giants if dominoes fall in a certain way. I brought up the fact that there is not a lot of cross pollination between Giants and A's managers. In fact, Alvin Dark, who managed the 62 nationally champion Giants and the 74 World Series champion A's, is the only one to manage both sides of the Bay Area. But since 1986, with the arrival of Tony La Russa to the A's and Roger Craig, who arrived the year before with the Giants, every single manager who has managed in the Bay Area has led their team to at least one division title. That includes Mark Kotsay. That includes Gabe Kapler. But one didn't. Who was it? And we got a couple of people. I believe it was John Murphy Jr. got it correct. John Murphy Jr. got it correct. Bob Guerin, who managed the team right after the 2006 division title and was let go in 2011 when Bob Melvin showed up, and then later they went on a run in the playoffs. Bob Guerin, who apparently was like the best man at Billy Bean's wedding, couldn't deliver a division title, and off he went. So there you go, John Murphy Jr., you got the trivia question correct. Speaking of fired managers, Scott Servais and David Ross, both of their teams wet the bed. And I want to bring something up specifically right now with let's just rewind the clock back to less than a month ago. The first week of September. In the first week of September, the Chicago Cubs were not just a playoff team, but they were right on the heels of the Brewers. They were 2 games back in the loss column. They were a game and a half back in the standings. The possibility of the Cubs winning the division was there, and they had a lot of big games that were coming up. Also, the Seattle Mariners were tied in the loss column with the Houston Astros and only 1 game out in the standings. And the Mariners were the 4th best team in the American League and eyeing not only a division title, but the division title was within their grasp. Texas was falling like a rock. Houston looked vulnerable. They're only a game out, and for a while in September, they were in first place by themselves. But I have a point to make here. At this point, this is on the 6th of September. So just, less than 4 weeks ago, this was how the landscape of baseball was. The Mariners were the 4th best team in the American League and gaining. They had no chance to catch the Rays or the Orioles, but they looked poised to leapfrog the Houston Astros. And the Cubs looked completely. The Cubs had one of the wild card spots all but locked up at that point. And they were 3.5 games ahead of the Mariners, not the Mariners, the Marlins, with 3 weeks to go, and they were aiming for the division title. How did things go after that for those teams? Well, for the Mariners, it got ugly. And 9-12, it's not grotesque, but don't forget there was that sweep by the Texas Rangers. How much is that coming back to haunt them right now? Things did get grotesque for the Chicago Cubs, who lost 15 of their last 21 games. And they lost to bad teams. They lost in dumb ways and basically just shot themselves right in the foot. And so many games, you could look down throughout the whole year, you saw that David Ross was playing the wrong people. How many at-bats did Trey Mancini get? How many times did they not have their best hitters bat in the top end of the lineup? I mean, how many times did he make the wrong move? How many times did you see Cub fans pulling their collective hair out? I've been calling for David Ross's job for a little bit. I did it right here on the podcast several times. I have nothing against David Ross. He's yet another former Terry Francona player who was a member of the 2013 World Series champion Boston Strong Red Sox. Won a World Series title with the Cubs, and I have no doubt has forgotten more baseball than most of us will ever know, and was probably the right person to be the manager when they did the teardown. When they did the great teardown in 2021, they needed to have at least one familiar face on the team, one person to be kind of the conduit between the World Series winning team and what was going to be a complete teardown. But now they're trying to be contenders, and he has not shown that he could be the manager of a contender. He certainly didn't do it down the stretch. And you saw the teams unraveling these last few weeks and looking just angry, and weird decisions were made, and they were losing to bad teams. I mean, 6-15 down the stretch. Absolute free fall. Now the Brewers went 14-8 in that same stretch. So that's one reason they went from on the verge of overtaking the Brewers to being an afterthought. But do you know how many teams played worse than the Cubs in that stretch? Just the Red Sox. And the Red Sox have just checked out. I mean, this last month, the Red Sox didn't bother showing up. They were like, all right, this is spring training. We don't care. It was a little frustrating as a Red Sox fan because I was hoping that they would make an effort to be a 500 team. But I digress. I don't think David Ross should come back. There are a lot of really good managerial candidates out there. Bruce Bochy's lieutenants, take your drinks. But there are other, really fine quality managers out there. People who are, baseball lifers, people, you could give a veteran manager another chance. I know Joe Maddon's not coming back, but this is a team that needs a manager that's ready to win now, and preferably one that's already done it. Now, I don't understand why, Joe Maddon turned into a fool. Evidently, he went from going to the Hall of Fame to being a fool pretty quickly. Joe Girardi, the same thing. I think sometimes it's a smart thing to maybe look at a veteran manager who may have stubbed their toe recently, be ready to redeem themselves. I mean, look at the arrival of Bruce Bochy in Texas. It looks like it's probably going to deliver a division title despite all the injuries. Look what happened when Jim Leyland came back after his disastrous turn managing the Colorado Rockies for one season. He took several years off, came back, boom, got himself a World Series championship. Not a World Series championship, 2 World Series appearances, managing the Detroit Tigers. Look at Dusty Baker. After being let go, he was not managing after he got let go by the Washington Nationals a few years ago. The Astros were in that horrible position that they put themselves into, where they needed to get someone from outside the organization that was respected by everybody. And they won back-to-back pennants. Look, they'll probably win another pennant this year. So if I were the Cubs, I'd look at managers who have managed, and maybe managers who have managed that had experience and maybe stubbed their toe somewhere, and they could learn from it. Do you give Gabe Kapler another chance? I don't know. Personally, I would give Roberto Kelly or Hensley Mullins a shot. I keep talking about that. But they need someone who's ready to win right now. As for the Mariners, I can understand letting Scott Servais go, because there's sometimes you get to that point where we're going all right, we need to put the aft thrusters on. We need to make an effort and show the fans that this was not acceptable. And he may be I don't think they lost down the stretch because of him, but I also think that a cosmetic change like that may be a spark for a franchise that remains the only team in Major League Baseball to have never appeared in a World Series, the only Major League franchise in history. When you consider the fact that the Expos franchise became the Nationals and they won the World Series a couple of years ago, the Mariners are the only franchise to never appear in a World Series. So maybe this is showing that they've made the move. They have the talent there. And maybe a new manager will spark the team. I think Joe Madden might be a good fit for them, or Bruce Bochy's lieutenants. I got to keep saying that again. But it would not stun me if we wake up tomorrow and see that the Mariners have said goodbye. I'll tell you the one who I wonder about is Schilt. Remember he won the Manager of the Year a few years ago in 2019 and had the Cardinals go on that wild winning streak in 2021 where they wound up making the wild card and then they fired him and now the Cardinals are in free fall. I'm just saying, there are managers out there with experience. If you're the Cubs, or if you're the Mariners, and you want to make a move like this, eh, use your imagination. They're good managers, and maybe get someone who this isn't their first gig. I hinted a little earlier that I wanted to talk a little bit about the Minnesota Twins. There has been a common mindset that the Twins are that lucky figure, that Jim Belushi who stumbled into success despite no real merit. The fact that that Minnesota happens to be a state in the middle of the country puts them in the Central, and because we still use divisions, a Central team has to make the postseason. And people pointed out that when you look at the second and third wild card team have much better record than the Twins, and blah blah blah. The Twins are an afterthought. They haven't won a playoff game since 2004. Yada yada blah blah blah. But I've noticed something. The Twins have played very well recently, and they've put together a pitching staff that is not bad. Assuming that Correa is healthy and ready to go, assuming that the Royce Lewis is going to be back, and some of the other players who were put on the shelf to get a little bit of rest down the stretch, assuming they're all going to be back, they're going to have several players who have postseason experience, like Christian Vasquez, like Carlos Correa, like Dallas Keuchel. But also, Pablo Lopez is a good pitcher. Sonny Gray has been pitching pretty well. The Joe Ryans of the world and the Dallas Keuchels of the world are not superstars, but they're not horrible. They've got some depth in their bullpen. Their bullpen isn't great, but their bullpen isn't terrible. But the other thing that is really worth noting, and yes, they've been playing some tomato cans recently, but when you look at their actual record, their record right now is 87 and 74. Let's just say they beat the Colorado Rockies, the 103 loss Rockies. Let's say they beat them tomorrow on the final day of the season. Then the Twins would have 88 wins. The Mariners have 87 wins. The Astros have 89 wins. The Rangers have 9. All right. Internet. It's not like the Twins are 15 games behind the Astros or the Rangers or the Mariners or all those other teams. They're within 2 games of all of them, which also means that they've been playing very well down the stretch. That same period of time I was talking about how poorly the Cubs have played and the Mariners played. You know who's had the best record in the American League in that stretch? The Twins, who've gone 14 and 7 down the stretch. They're playing well. Oddly, do you know what the second best record is down the stretch in the American League? That belongs to the Tigers. Go figure. They leapfrog Cleveland. But Minnesota is playing well. And they're going to have the home field advantage. And they're going to play either, it looks like they're going to play either, not Detroit, Jesus. This is what it says, 87. They're going to be playing either Texas, Houston, or there's a possibility they could be playing Toronto. I don't know. If they play Texas, I'm picking the Twins. If they play the Astros, I'm probably going to pick the Astros, but it's not a runaway. If they play the Blue Jays, that's a coin toss. Are we sleeping on the Twins right now? Are we sleeping on them as they're playing well down the stretch? Have we bought into the narrative that they're only in the postseason because of geography, when actually they're the hottest team in the American League right now, who could pitch and just need to win two? I know they haven't won one since 2004, the year before my sons were born, and my sons are currently in college. So, yeah, I know it's been a while, but it was also a while for the Nationals. It's also a while for every team that wound up getting all the way there. Don't sleep on the Twins. Oh, hey, by the way, I got a comment. Who's here? It says like, hey, it looks like my buddy H Town from Locked On Astros is saying, "Yo, Sully, how you doing, buddy? Hey, congratulations on your Astros getting to the postseason. Better late than never, I say. But it's going to be interesting. I have a feeling the way things are going to unfold that the Astros are going to be the American League West champions, and only my buddy H Town, who's currently in my comments section, will be happy about that. You can get the wet. Oh, here, of course, it's H Town. How silly of me. He wrote, "It's H Town, yes, sir. We can get the West still. We are pumped." Well, there you go. There you go. And hey, as well, you should be. The Astros have won the games they're supposed to win. So now save for the games in Kansas City. So now we're going to see if they're going to take the West. If they take the West, man, I think they're probably going to win the pennant again. And only you, H-Town, will be happy about that. But we'll see. We will absolutely see. Which brings us to our trivia question for tonight. Trivia question is this. There is a possibility the Diamondbacks and the Orioles could play each other in the World Series. Orioles have the best record in the American League. Diamondbacks have really good pitching. And there's always a weird team that goes far. If you don't believe me, check out last year's Phillies team. If they do face each other, that means Corbin Carroll would be in the World Series. Corbin Carroll is a lock to win the National League Rookie of the Year. Gunnar Henderson is a lock to win the American League Rookie of the Year. Trivia question is, when was the last time the two players who went on to win the Rookie of the Year faced off in the World Series? Put that question out to Locked On MLB on, what am I saying? Locked On MLB Pods. Thank you, on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now, or on Instagram. And you can put it here. Where's my lower third? You can follow me at, there we are. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, whatever it's called now. Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, or right here on the YouTube channels. Please subscribe to us. Tell your friends. We're going to be doing a lot of things. We're going to be doing shows every day. There's a postseason game. We're going to be doing a show here. And as you can see, we did a show on Saturday. We've done this show for Sunday. We're going to have a show for Monday. I'm not taking any days off. This is the time of the year to be a baseball fan. So, talking about going into the final day of the season, something we should savor, because for most of us, it's the last time we're going to see our team all year long. So if you're a Sox fan, a Cubs fan, a Mets fan, a Yankee fan, a Giant fan, an A's fan, all up and down the line, it's your time to say goodbye to your friends for yet another year. But now, oh, by the way, H-Town knows the answer. Let the fans figure it out. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for letting me run my show, H-Town. On behalf of H-Town sending the notes to me, this has been Locked On MLB. Easy for you to say. I got to go to bed. It's October 1st. Tomorrow's the last day of the year in terms of regular Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Live, I hit the thing live. Making mistakes on a live stream.